Welcome to the PowerLifting Podcast, the podcast where we interview top experts, coaches, lifters, and interesting people involved in the sport of powerlifting. With your host, Robert King. Robert is an international lifter and coach. Ladies and gentlemen, the bar is loaded!
Hi, Kimberly. How are you doing?
I'm doing great in this COVID country, aren't we?
It's a crazy world right now. All right, everybody. Welcome to the PowerLifting Podcast with your host, Robert King. I have an incredible guest with me today. She is one of the fiercest competitors I've ever seen on the platform. And then when you see her not on the platform, she is like one of the most kind and sweet and easygoing, and I love that that duality that she has. I'm going to fill you in very briefly. I had to get her to send me some of her statistics because they are absolutely incredible. So I'll summarize as quick as I can so we can get to the interview and have some fun. 7-time Open World Champion, 18 Open World Records, 6 M1 Classic records. She is also, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Also, USVIPF Secretary, Cat 2 referee, which is a lot of people don't realize the importance and how big referees play a role. Cat 2 referee, and then USVIPF team coach as well. And this is where I met you a few times coaching. So we'll get to some of this stuff later. But welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. How are things going right now? Like how's your life? How's training with all this COVID craziness going on? How are you doing?
Just rolling with the punches, as I think like everyone else can. Regards to life, I'm still working myself. We also have a modified schedule, I think, like everyone else. And I know a lot of people don't have the benefit, but many years ago, I actually started to invest in having a home gym. So I've been just training as usual. Just miss having my friends around to train too. But
a little different without the friends and the teammates there. But yeah, I've been following your Instagram for a while, and you're still getting after it. There's no slowing down. Like I get a little lazy at home, and then I see your post, and I'm like, damn, I got to go train.
Nope, the goals don't stop. You know, in my mind, I'm still training as if we were going to compete at Worlds in June, and we see like a lot of the championships have moved to the fourth quarter. So I'm still focused on training and to prepare for those meets, and we'll go with what happens when it happens. So.
That's awesome, man. You're a warrior when it comes to training. And your training has been pretty good too. I see you lots of doing some different stuff, a lot more overhead pressing stuff recently, and like still killing it hard on squats. Like, how's your training going now? Still full training cycle, just modified a little bit?
Well, one thing that has changed, it kind of hit me like an epiphany at Worlds last year was, I was like, maybe I could be open to letting someone else train me for a while. You know, I've trained myself for about the last 8 years. I'm happy with the results, but you know, I had let my buddy Greta, he's from Iceland. He's one of the coaches, and he, you know, we've just been really close together. And I said, you know what, I'd like to give him a chance. So Greta's been coaching me since then, and it's definitely been some changes in training, changes in some volume, some things that I thought that I was doing volume. But you know what I realized is that no matter how much you know, there's always someone else who knows more, or someone else who can give you a different perspective. And I said, why not? You know, why not take the chance? For me, it was just a matter of trusting someone to be able to take that over, because I was so used to doing it on my own, you know, but like I said, I trust him. He's one of my closest friends. So I said, you know, why not? You know, he works with the Norwegians. He's worked with Icelandic lifters. He works with a variety of lifters, and he's been in powerlifting for many years himself. So
that's awesome. So this is your first time like going with a coach. Usually you would coach yourself, do most of your own programming, or have you like reached out to other people in the past as well?
If we're not counting me, it would have been my first only coach would have been Gene Bell, one of my closest friends. And he's the one who taught me how to coach myself. Then I coached myself for about 8 years, and now Greta's coaching.
That's awesome, man. It's I think for an athlete, I can't imagine of an athlete at your level, it's pretty hard to kind of like, how would you say it? Like open the kimono and be like, hey, you know, help me. Like, it takes a lot to do that.
Yeah, he took it. I mean, he came, you know, I trusted him. Like I said, you just got to trust your instinct. And he's been with me for the last few meets, like running me at meets. And, you know, we have talks, and he kind of reminds me, even though they're their own separate people, like I still call Gene Bell coach, even though he's just always coached to me. But they have similarities in personalities and mindsets. And I think that's why it was easy for me to just be like, you know, I think Greta would be great for me too, you know, and it was just an easy transition.
That's awesome, man. I mean, sometimes it's also nice to have somebody coach you and take your mind away from that and not be preoccupied with thinking about things and just kind of like doing what you're told and just being a good athlete and just way to go, right? You know, but I've been following you training. I love it. I love the variations that you're doing and stuff. And like I said, you've motivated me a few times. I've sent you a message and, you know, you said a quote or said something. I'm like, damn, I got to go train now. This girl's firing me up, right? It's great to see. No slowing down. Hey, so you were training really hard for Sheffield. Everything was kind of going, prep was going good by the looks of it. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
things hit.
And then COVID happened and ruined everything. You just started to see things would happen. You started to see like countries shutting down, travel restrictions. And, you know, I'm a person that tends to want to be as optimistic as possible until there is literally no hope for me to be optimistic anymore. So literally, as you, I'm sure, saw yourself, it just got to the point with all the restrictions that, yeah, it had to be shut. And I just had to tell myself, well, everything happens for a reason. And as soon as I knew for certain that it was basically going to be postponed to the following year, I just had to change my mindset and said, okay, well, what am I training for now? Okay, I'm training as if Worlds is still in June, and that's where my mindset switched to.
That's awesome. That's actually one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is like, is your goal setting and like how you view things. So like, what's kind of like, what's next for you now? Like I said, eye on the prize for Worlds. And so what date, like when are you looking at for Worlds for, because it's been pushed back down a little bit, or is it still the same?
Okay, so we're looking at now, I know it's going to be the last weekend in September, first weekend in October. So the open lifters, I think we should be competing in that first week in October. Yeah. So I'm training, I guess, in the sense of in prep for that, you know. And then, like I said, unless something changes, then I'll make an adjustment, you know, at that point. But I can't lie and say that I can't hope that we get at least one championship in this year, preferably that one, but I'll take whatever we can get at this point.
I saw the calendar the other day, and like we were talking about just before, like everything in the calendar has just been kind of like you said, pushed to the fourth quarter. It's kind of like,
it's that, yeah.
It's gonna be pretty crazy. So for you, training wise, you always focus better with a goal, competition in mind, something to drive you, something to fuel you. You know, like there was one of your quotes I said to you, and you live for training anyway, but you always train better with a goal in mind versus not.
In my mind, yes. I'm always focused on something, and it's like, it's not just one goal. I have multiple goals. And sometimes I even play mind games with myself. I do it a lot, and I'll come up with reasons, just things that motivate me. And it's whatever I need to just remind myself to get into that mindset. And I think I really enjoy that a lot because it always reminds me to, at the minimum, remember, you have to put in work every day. Like, it's just not going to come to you easy. And that for every day, like I said, that if you slack off or think you're going to slack off, being reminded that you're making it that much easier for the next person to get that much closer to you, you know, and those things push me along in addition to all the inspiration I receive from so many, avenues as well. But yeah, that's pretty much my mindset when it comes to training.
It's awesome, man. If anybody listening or watching this podcast, if you need motivation and you need to get fired up, I mean, us mere mortals go through like times of, you know, not feeling strong and not kind of sometimes wanting to train, and just get on her Instagram and you just be like, okay, I gotta go train now. I'm motivated to train. Okay, let's take a step back, and then before we get to let's go backwards before we go forwards. Track fu, where did the name come from?
It comes from high school, actually. Before I met powerlifting, I was heavy into track. I ran track in high school and college, and that was actually the name of our clique of varsity lifters on the track team. We called our clique Track Food. So I never got rid of it. So
let's talk track. What were your specialties in track? Is there anything?
I ran the 4, the 2, I anchored the 4x1, 4x4, and I triple jumped and long jump. So it was literally a full day. I did everything. Yeah,
it's there's so many avenues with track and field and stuff. And I never knew, but I kind of figured, okay, she clearly has a track background. You don't call legs like that and have a name like that unless you are involved in that. How long were you involved in track? And then when did you make the switch over to lifting or powerlifting?
I was involved in track for high school 4 years, college 3 years. And I started powerlifting when I joined the military, but when I joined the Air Force. So that was probably around I was about 20, 21 years old when I started powerlifting. Like, I never stopped lifting. I started lifting weights when I was 13, but the transition into, and it's always been a part of every sport I've ever played, but learning about powerlifting was when I was about 20, 21 when I was in the Air Force. And it was just one of my training buddies, and he was introduced me to, there was a bench meet on a base, and he's like, you should do it. And I was like, I don't want to do it. It was like, I just like to work out. And he convinced me, and then I did. And I was like, ooh, what is this? And then immediately I started researching everything I could about, this sport, powerlifting. And I remember even back then thinking, okay, what do I need to do to qualify for states, nationals? How would I rank? Like, this is my mindset from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I was lucky enough to have is that when I started powerlifting, I was in the state of Wyoming, for people around who know where Wyoming is, Midwest. And I was fortunate enough that one of the guys that I trained at the gym in Wyoming was actually big into powerlifting at the time, and also in the USVIPF at the time. So he was great for me with helping me transition and learning things. I couldn't have asked for a better transition, and I'm thankful that I had that back then.
And how fast was obviously with your mindset and the way that you think, how fast was your transition into powerlifting? Like, you did first meet, kind of like you said, bench press meet, I think, and then you got bitten by the bug, and then it was like, so how did that take place?
I did the Wyoming State Championships, which qualified me for nationals, and I was a junior, so I went to junior nationals equipped, because there wasn't classic and broad, it was just equipped back then. Yep. And I won the junior national title, my first nationals at USVIPF. So it was a quick transition, probably not the same for most people, but that was mine. So
you're just bitten by the bug, and you kind of knew that this was going to be, you know what I mean? Did you have this thing of like, this is your thing now, like that you just kind of like took to it?
Pretty much. I honestly thought that I'd never find a sport that I loved as much as track, because I, eat, slept, and breathed it for 8 years, and then I found powerlifting, and it was the same way. I was completely focused, and I've been so ever since.
That's awesome. It's funny how people find this sport. I'm always curious of the backgrounds of how people like find lifting or find powerlifting. And it's almost like, sometimes powerlifting has a way of finding you, And
yeah.
So when you first started first nationals, how did you do at your first nationals? Were you pretty green to the sport, or did you do like everything went well?
I was definitely pretty green, but I just told myself, I guess like any other athlete, whether you transition or stay in the sport that you're in, the same mindset about focus and preparation. So I prepared as best as I thought I had to. And like I said, I was a junior at the time, so I competed. I don't remember. I don't remember what the weight class was back there, 148, so 67.5 maybe back then, I think, or I was probably lighter, who knows. But yeah, I won the junior class in at my first national. So that was my first introduction to nationals. Oh,
awesome. And so like, let's talk worlds. Let's get to the crazy stuff. 7-time Open World Championship. What was your first worlds experience like?
The first one was a classic that would have been Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden, when it was still called the Cup. That was the first one. And I remember one of the coolest things that I enjoyed, it was that it was an all-female crew, running the crew when we were competing. It was just the excitement of knowing that everything that I did to get myself there, pushing myself with my training, and I ended up winning, the first championship. And once you get bitten, you want to keep going. And I was just proud and excited to represent the country, and just keep moving from there. That's where it started.
So like, what was that competition like for your first one? Like, was it a good battle? Like, did it come down to deadlifts? Do you recall? Like, was it a tight fight?
Yes. It was actually me and our teammate at the time, Jen Thompson. We were competing. Yeah, that was our first time competing against each other at Worlds, and it came down to, I think, to my last deadlift. And I ended up, I won by, I think it was half a kilo. I won with the total. Yep, came down to the last one to win. So
many
I'm no stranger to close calls.
Yeah, many deadlift battles. Like it's pretty crazy. So 7 world championships. Like out of those 7, like which ones kind of like really stand out to you? Like, is there any world championships where you're like, obviously the first one, but then after that of like, you know, things that just jump out at you, or is there anything that like?
They all stand out for various reasons. Obviously the first one, because it's the first, the ones in between, because of the battles of who I've competed against, you know, literally the best 63s or 72s in the world. You know, I've been pushed every year, and probably the last one for me, because it was my first one back, you know, transitioning back into the IPF. So that's pretty much it. They all matter, but they all matter for special reasons.
That's awesome. So, you know, I always try to tell people it's one thing to get to worlds. I can't imagine what it's like to win worlds, but then to be a 7-time world champion, that's not going to happen by accident. That's going to be, you know, a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of putting your time in. And we talked about this before we jumped on the podcast, of putting in the work, you know?
Yeah. I think sometimes, you know, what I've told myself, sorry about that. What I've told myself is that I don't really think about what I've accomplished in the moment. I told myself that when I'm done, when I retire is when I'll think about it. My mindset is just strictly focused on what am I preparing for now, getting to that goal, completing it, and moving on to the next. I think one of the good things about me having that type of mindset is it doesn't allow me to get bogged down with any type of stressors or fears or any type of doubt or anything, you know, that would mess with my confidence, you know? So that's some of the things that I do to help with that.
So let's, I was gonna ask about like your mindset and like, you know, your goal setting process and your mental approach to the bar, but let's kind of start maybe if we could with goals for a little bit. Like you just said, you know, as soon as you got one done, you were like, game on, focus on the next one. Is that how you do everything? It's always like focused on one main goal, and then as soon as that one's done, you're going after the next one. Like, what's your mental process like as the type of lifter that you are?
Yes, depending on the meet, I may have a series of goals. Obviously, the number one is to do my best and go after, you know, the championship or, you know, the highest ranking. I mean, realistically, that's how I think. I'm going after the win, and I would expect anyone else in that same frame of mind to do the same thing. Either you're going after the championship or you're going after the highest ranking you could get. So everything I'm doing is to prepare me for that. And during that cycle, I'm thinking about things like, what are things from the last cycle that I want to keep? What are things in my training that I need to improve on? What are the things that I've seen in, you know, training videos or even the competition itself that I need to focus on so I can be better? And I use all those things, you know, and now talking with my coach, because I'm not talking to myself anymore, about what are we going to do to work on those things. And that's the process that I use for every meet. And for every meet, I feel like for the most part, it changes because some of the goals are different. You know, nothing ever stays the same.
So when you do goal setting, like, do you write things down on paper? Obviously consulting with your coach, you're probably going to discuss these things, but like, are you a pen and paper type person? Is it like in your head? Like, do you have any type of process that you use for your goals, or they just...
In my head, I do a lot of visualization. I am not embarrassed to tell you sometimes, probably most nights before I go to bed, I'm imagining some aspect of powerlifting. Can't even lie to you. Some aspect of training, some visualization of some future or previous meet. I've got all kinds of like stats and things I write down in my phone about things I want to keep track of. I have little notes and reminders around various places, like just to constantly remind me of what I'm focused on.
That's awesome. So it's like, so even when you're not thinking powerlifting, it's still kind of like, it's always still subconsciously probably still going, hey?
Mm-hmm. I'll even share this one. I don't mind. I'm not embarrassed. There's been times even when I am like in a public bathroom and I know no one's around, well, I'll be practicing squat form. I don't care. And I'll make sure nobody comes in.
You heard it here first, folks. You heard it here first.
But, you know, it's just, this is the other part of life. I mean, you have your professional life in the sense that pays your bills, and this is the other professional life for me. And for a lot of us, because we're so involved, whether you're not just an athlete, but a referee and coach and stuff, it's a huge part of your life. So similar to anything else that you are, you know, extremely focused on, you have to put in the proper time for preparation. So you have to do what you got to do.
Yeah, let's talk coaching for a minute. So basically, when you sent me some information before, and I was just reviewing the notes and stuff, and I've met you at a few competitions and stuff like that. I mean, we chatted in Costa Rica when you were coaching, and then I was like, wow, okay. I knew you were a smart lifter, but now I was like, now you're top coaching as well. So you're also coaching and is it Cat 2? I believe Cat 2 referee, right? So let's talk coaching for a second. You are coaching with USVIPF Powerlifting now. How's that going for you?
Oh, I love it. I mean, I coach for the team. You know, I like to work with the athletes' coaches as well, because I want them to be as involved as possible, because I'm always about playing devil's advocate. And my mindset is that if this is the person that has gotten this athlete to the level where they can compete nationally or internationally, that it's important for them to be a part of the process with regards to coaching them at the international level, at, you know, worlds or any other meets. I would not want to take that away from them. And I think one of the things that's helped me from having that mindset is being on the other side as an athlete and thinking, what do I need to make me most comfortable and most prepared when I'm stepping on the stage at the biggest platforms? And then as far as being a coach, I love it. It's just another sense of a rush, you know. You can get just as hyped and nervous as you would when you're competing, but I feel like sometimes it's a different type of, you know, nervousness watching one of your athletes compete, because you know what they've gone through to get to where they are, and you want the best for them. So it's great when you get to see it come to fruition, you know. So I really enjoy that just as much as myself being on the platform.
That's awesome. I think, you know, when you are a competitive lifter and then when you're coaching, you see a different perspective of things. And then also when you're refereeing, you see a different perspective. And like, you know, when you come to the sport as a lifter, a competitive lifter, a coach, and a referee, that's aside from volunteering, I mean, that's, you know, you're pretty much getting most aspects of that. How long have you been refereeing now?
Wow. When did I start? 2000. So I think probably around 2004, 2005, I think is when I started, like at the state level, you know, when I was still a USAPL, and then I became a national referee, and then national, and then I became international, about 2 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. Everything runs together. So I'm gonna say for at least 12 to 15 years, I've been a referee. If I really think about the time, like starting from state and working my way up to the international level. So, yeah.
I think myself included, I think a lot of lifters, when they get into lifting and all they see is the platform and the bar, they don't see all the other things that are around them. They don't see what goes into, let's say, the volunteering, obviously. They don't really see the referees. The referees just tell them if the lift was good or not. But like refereeing, just going down that rabbit hole of stuff, there's so much to refereeing. Like there's so much to it. It is crazy. And without the referees, there wouldn't be a sport. So, I mean, to reach that level of refereeing and coaching, you have a completely different view on things now than most people will probably ever understand, which is really cool, right?
Very appreciative of it. And I will let you know that as many athletes as I talk to and know, whether friends or just in passing, I ask them, well, so the referee,
yeah,
when you're taking your test,
yeah,
you know, it's only going to make you a better powerlifter. I tell them, you know, your perspective, like you said, it becomes more enhanced because of that additional knowledge. And the other thing I like, not just from coaching, but also with refereeing as well, with regard to your perspective for training as well, because you may be refereeing someone on the platform and they may be doing something, whether positive or negative, that you yourself do. So it's kind of like a reminder, like, oh, that's something I should keep in my own training, or, oh, that's something I need to work on that I do myself, or even it reinforces the fact of you holding yourself to a higher standard because you're the person sitting in the chair now judging whether someone's lift is good or not.
Yeah, it's completely different. Like I got into refereeing a couple of years ago, went from lifting into coaching and now going into refereeing, and only recently, last year got provincial, now working my way towards national. And I have a whole different respect for referees and the position of being a referee. And, you know, it's not an easy job. It's very intense. Everything every lift to that person makes a difference and matters and stuff like that. So you've got like a really good view on the sport, you know. And then also let's take it one step further. You're also involved in the USVI secretary position as well, right?
Yes. So I'm also the Secretary General for the Federation. I love like being able to assist from the administrative perspective. So I assist in every aspect of administration you could think of, and I love it. It's easy to do, and it's not really a job when it's something that you enjoy. So we enjoy powerlifting. So it's just something else that I can add to the list of things that, things that I've really enjoyed doing in the sport. And it's not just like me, myself, just me just working on it. What I truly enjoy is that it gives me the opportunity to pull in additional people for the federation. Once again, like, it's not just about you competing on the platform. Like, what are you doing to assist your federation?
Mm-hmm.
How are you helping to bring in new athletes or to help your federation grow? Because I think sometimes it's unfortunate to say that sometimes I feel like some of our athletes are just focused on themselves and not thinking about what they can also do to give back to organizations and the people who've helped them to get to where they are.
Without a doubt. Let's talk USVI for a second. I'm going to plead, I hate to say ignorance, but I know so little about USVI, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. So like,
sure.
like a quick summary on like USVI, maybe USVI powerlifting, and how you got involved in it.
Okay. Well, USVI, for U.S. citizens who are not aware about U.S. territories, and for everyone else around the world, it is a U.S. territory. So U.S. passport holders who just happen to live in the Virgin Islands, similar to like Puerto Rico or Guam. How I got involved with USVI is that I had to transition from USAPL to another federation that would work best for me as an athlete. And it's about athletes finding the federations that work for them. So one of the things that helps facilitate that is that our IPF passed a rule. It was, I think it was Rule 23, but in the Constitution, it's 105.9.3. Crazy that I know that by heart.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
basically,
you look at notes or anything, it's just
summarizing it, because I know sometimes our millennials don't like to read, but it basically says that if you have the passport for a country or have lived in residency for at least 12 months, and the IPF EC has to verify that residency if that's the case, and you meet the requirements for membership for that organization, that for the most part, you can apply for membership to any IPF affiliate. There's some other little caveats in there, but it's more self-explanatory, but I figured I'd get to the heart of the stuff that most people would probably want to know. So that's how I transitioned to the USVI.
That's awesome. So how long have you been with USVI now?
Why does everything seem to run together once you get over 40? I want to say, okay, so I competed first. This is 2020 now. Please forgive me. The COVID has all dates and times and months running together. So last year was my first year competing. So this would make year 2. Yes, that's what it would be. And
how many, do you know approximately, like how many competitors the USVI powerlifting may have? If you have,
we have roughly about 50 members right now. Yeah, but when I initially started last year, we were down to about 2. So it's been huge work. You know, everyone's been working together. Like I said, you bring in one athlete, that athlete brings in another athlete, and that's how I believe that's one of the ways that federations can grow, is we're able to vet for each other and say, hey, are you powerlifting? You should come join. So we get you to come in. So awesome. That's pretty much how we've grown so much.
And like, I think your passion and your knowledge of the sport shines through. So when I coach or anything, I'm always watching everything. So I'm watching the lifters I'm coaching, but I'm also always watching everything. And I had the pleasure of kind of like watching you coach, and you were so happy for your athletes. And it's one thing of like, most coaches try to play like in they're kind of stoic and they don't show much emotion, but you're like super proud when your athletes do well and stuff.
Yeah.
You can see it, man. It shines through. Like, you love it, you know?
Yeah, it's like you said, you know that what they've gone through to get to that moment. So of course you're just waiting to find out. At least that's the only difference. Like when you're refereeing, they expect you to stay stoic and you're not supposed to show any expression. Yeah. But at least when you're coaching, you can show the expression, that the feelings that you're feeling when you see the excitement of them doing well. You know, so yeah.
It's a great feeling, hey? It's different than lifting. Lifting, you have to be kind of, selfish and focus on you, but coaching is all about giving to the other people around you and your team and making them better and seeing them happy. And you do a great job coaching, man. It was a pleasure to watch you. I was like, just good at what she does, man. It was cool to see, you know?
Honored to be around.
Yeah. So like what got you into coaching? Like, is there anything that really like got you into powerlifting coaching? I mean, did you just decide that this is what you wanted to do? Like, how did it happen?
I think it was just like a natural progression or transition. Like I said, my first coach, Gene Bell, like I said, he taught me so much. And part of the things that we ended up doing when we were together is that he would help me learn how to handle people. And he taught me how to write programs, and he told me, it's a lot of like trial and error, getting to know your athletes. of course, having strong communication between you and your athlete, because I think it's important to say that too, because you have to ensure that you're getting all the information you need and they're getting all the information they need to ensure that you have the best relationship. And just going from there, as you grow, that athlete grows as well. And sometimes there's adjustments that need to be made to continue that relationship going strong, with regards to that athlete getting stronger and better. And of course, also focusing on mobility and everything else that they need to work on, because it's not just about lifting weights. I remember also got to work on that mobility. And of course, also paying attention that when you're also looking at training videos and even them in action, live action, that you see things that need to be fixed. Like a coach should be able to look at the athlete, whether it's video or training, and see, are there things that are causing like a breakdown in technique? Is the breakdown technique due to something related to the training, or is it maybe a irritation or injury that the athlete didn't tell you about or may have forgot about? These are all the other aspects of training. Also listening to your athletes when they are giving the feedback and being able to interpret what they mean when they're saying certain things in their feedback and training. So you're able to determine, oh, okay, maybe I need to make a tweak to training, or maybe this type of exercise doesn't work well because this person has mobility issues. I mean, it's a lot more than just, of course, I already know that that just writing a program.
That's right.
So.
Yeah. It's, and there's many levels to coaching. There's many aspects, many avenues of it and stuff like that. And then when you get to the platform, then that's a whole different side of coaching and a whole different thing as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it was great this year watching you coach and stuff. And I think I messaged like Rebecca, and I was like, Kimberly just called me Coach King. And I was like super happy and smiling and stuff. I had like a little girl crush. I said, funny, all right? But it was great. I had a great time with you in Costa Rica and stuff. You were really helpful, and I'm glad to see you do what you do and stuff like that. It's a great thing that you do.
I felt the same way about you. It really was great coaching with you. It's like, it really is good that when you can see us in the midst of just being around everyone and all that positivity in the room, all moving towards that same goal, of seeing the best in that athlete, whether it's you or the athlete that you're coaching. So yeah, it was a great time. I
think this whole COVID thing, when it passes, I think will all give us a whole different appreciation on the sport and how much we love it, and how grateful it is or how good it is that we're able to get back and do those things and, lift and compete and travel and just, we miss it probably more now than ever, right? Isn't
that always what happens? You miss it when it's gone? Isn't that what they tell us?
Totally. Hey, we appreciate it a lot more. That is for sure. Right. Let's talk about your mindset in a different way. One thing I've always loved about watching you lift is when it's time for you to lift, it's like you can just like pull a trigger, flick the switch, and something there inside of you comes out. I mean, we've seen it on you many times, and in deadlift, you got to step up to that bar and pull, and you can flip that switch. What goes into your mindset when you're doing this? Like, what are you thinking? Are you thinking anything like, big pull coming up, but where does your mind go?
A lot of times what I'll say to myself is I've done everything I can to get to this moment. Like I literally zero into, now it's just time to go. It could be something positive or negative. I got to tell you, it's all a series of things. Mm-hmm. It could be people. It could be things that I focused on in training and telling myself, now I have the opportunity to go after this weight. It could have been a missed lift from a previous meet. That's been one that's been in my head sometimes. And knowing that in that moment, I'm seeing that missed lift. So it only just pumps me up even more for that attempt, knowing like it's not happening today. Like today I'm going to get it, It's just a matter, I know for me, I can pull from so many sources, and it's something I would like to hope that everyone else can do as well. You just got to find something within you that just lights that fire to give you enough extra energy or some type of mental pre-workout just to get you through that moment to be able to complete that lift successfully. Yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, everybody's different. You've got to find what's going to work for
you.
And I think, the best lifters that have identified that. And I'm always curious as to what good lifters do mentally to get themselves ready for a lift. Competing obviously makes for a long day. I mean, 3 squats, 3 benches, 3 deadlifts. Is there any, do you control your energy a bit more on squats, or is squats a little more intense than bench press, a little calmer? Like, how do you approach a full day of lifting like that?
100% on every lift.
100%.
And the reason why is because...
This is why I love talking to you.
nothing is guaranteed. Even if everything is ideal and optimal, you're going after getting that lift every single time. So 9 times. And as much as we want to believe that we're always going to get that 9 for 9, it's just rare. And you just have to be able to consistently be able to continue focusing on treating each lift of me saying I have to be in that moment to complete that lift in that moment, and then move on to the next, and then move on to the next. And that's literally my mindset, is that give 100%, give 100%. But I have to say something, because now this may sound like a contradiction. I have to admit, though, when I get to deadlift, I don't know. I just feel like I have extra energy. I think maybe because it's my favorite lift, and I feel like I'm just turning it up just a little bit more, you know. But I would say no, to stay consistent. Yeah, you're giving 100% for every lift.
Just
whether you do it or not, you got to focus.
So like it's like 100% on squats, 100% on bench, and then like 110, 115 on deadlift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds more like it.
That sounds better. Yeah.
So let's talk deadlifts. I mean, deadlifts is obviously your money maker. It's a big lift for you and stuff like that. Has your deadlift always been strong? Like, was it always something that kind of like stood out from your other lifts, or was it your training and stuff that probably took it to a different level?
I think it's always stood out, and a little part of me wonders if I started weight training when I was 13. And before I knew anything about conventional or sumo deadlifts, I had been doing straight leg deadlifts for literally probably up until I was about 20, because that's when I found powerlifting. So I didn't really know much about anything else. And, you know, after I remember my first meet, I pulled, it was a 400 or over 400, and that was my first meet. And the funny thing was that I actually did 2 reps because I didn't know you were only supposed to do 1. But then when everyone started laughing and said, and the head ref told me to put it down, I said, and he said, you only have to do 1. I said, okay. So I learned that, yeah, this is my bread and butter. So, but I have to tell you that when it comes to training, even though I know deadlift is my best lift, I give 100% to all 3, because you can't have like a negative relationship with any of the other lifts if they're not your strongest lift, because you need all 3.
Yeah.
And you never know in a competition, if even though you're strongest in one lift, that's your favorite, but what you do in those other 2 are what going to allow you to build the total to get you to where you want to get you to where you want to be able to get that total or that championship or that ranking that you want. And I remember, like, in the past, sometimes I had like a really love-hate relationship with bench, and a lot of women, you know, do. But eventually I just had to come to peace with it and say, look, I need you just as much as I need the other 2. So what can I do to fix you? So what I hope people can take away from what I just said is that you just got to treat all 3 because they're just as important. They all matter. And you may not be as best at one versus the other, but you have to work hard to be the best you can in that one, so that you can be better at the other 2.
Yeah, and it's a, you know, when you're doing 3 lift, it's a 3 lift sport. It's not a deadlift only competition. So I mean,
yeah,
you've got to be strong in all 3. You know, when it comes to your deadlift, and we'll talk about your benching in a second and stuff. When it comes to your deadlifts, what do you think some exercises are that you've done that's kind of like brought up your deadlifts? I know you're a big fan of like deficit pulls. You do a fair bit of deficit deadlifts. Anything else that kind of jumps out at you as like you think are like for you, not necessarily for everybody, but like what are your go-tos to bring your deadlift?
I like bands because they're unforgiving regardless of what lift you're doing. So I feel like they're the cure-all for everything.
Gotcha.
Just because, and you of course understand, because once you wrap up enough tension, it'll make sense what I'm saying if you haven't experienced this. I love pulls, block pulls, rack pulls. I like them because at the minimum they teach you how to generate force for people who don't really understand the concept of really being able to push through their feet.
Yes.
Staying tight. It teaches you to do that. Rack pulls and block pulls. I think they also both work on mental toughness.
Yes.
Because getting you to learn that mindset that you have to not only be able to focus or harness that energy within yourself to initiate that pull, to pull it off the blocks or the rack, but that it also teaches you the patience and the confidence in knowing that if I maintain proper form and I've earned the right to actually go after this heavier weight, then I should be successful in being able to lift it. So yeah, those are probably my top 2s.
Do you do any direct grip training? Or are you just like mostly through your deadlifts and through your just regular training? Do you do any direct grip work?
Mostly through deadlifts and stuff. I think one of the benefits I've had is that I have really long fingers. So most people thought I played basketball or piano when I was a kid, but look, I finally found a sport where it's a benefit. So it allows me to be able to hold on. But definitely, if I do feel like an athlete may need some assistance with training, with grip training, then I throw it in, like using, the fat handles on the grips, or any type of time under tension work is a lot what I like to do when it comes to grip training. I'm having them work with the battle ropes. That's a lot of that. A lot of farmer hand carry as well. Anything that's going to put time under tension and stress on that grip to force them to really focus on it. Also, doing any type of band deadlifts as well. Band deadlifts, one of the benefits is it works on your grip, because that time under tension with that with the bands. Yeah,
and you can't coast through a band deadlift workout. Like the bar is going to be full out of your hands so much you're going to be fighting it like that top range. There's no it's going to own you if you do, right?
Definitely no laziness with bands.
No, definitely not. One of these days I'm going to do a deadlift workout with you, and you're going to show me how to do what you do. Do you sumo pull? Have you ever sumo pulled?
Yes.
Yeah?
I do sumo train as well, because I feel like it allows you to work on aspects of muscles you may not be hitting in conventional. It also has carryover for squat, so why not? I think, when you're doing a lot of training, you have to look at antagonist and agonistic muscles with regards to training, basically muscles that work against each other. And I'm always looking for ways to improve strength. So in my mind, I'm always thinking, what haven't I hit this cycle? Okay, this is something I should focus on next cycle, because overall it's about you being as strong as possible. So you have to make sure that you're hitting muscles you may not necessarily hit with various other trainings. And I think for a lot of us, because we're so comfortable in our chosen deadlift, that sometimes people don't want to try sumo or the opposite conventional because they don't feel as strong. But the great thing about noticing that you're weaker in another exercise means it's probably something you need to work on, because it's only going to make you stronger overall. So I just look at it as another challenge. I definitely do sumo too.
That's awesome. So with your current training, like let's say your training block, like right now, like how many times a week are you squatting, benching, and deadlifting?
Squat 3 times, bench 3 times, and deadlift at the minimum once. Every once in a while I'm doing twice, depending, but it's a lighter day. Gotcha. And it's all depending on how the week is going. But for many years, and it's weird, I was so focused on, majority of my training was, and this even when I taught, one training, you deadlift once a week, because I just felt like it took so much out of me that I needed the extra recovery. And sometimes it's just like that, but if I'm going to throw in, and this is something that I tell people, that if you're going to throw in an extra deadlift day, make sure that you have, at least a few days in between you deadlifting. Again, give your body that extra rest, and make sure it's more of like an accessory day. You don't want to have one heavy day and 2 heavy days in a week, because it is extremely taxing on the body. So what are your like squat variations that you're kind of focusing on in this part of your block training now? Like this one, I literally have just started a new cycle. So let me think if I can think. What is it I'm doing? I think I'm doing more like some cambered bar style stuff. I like doing cambered bar stuff. Doing some band work as well. I can't remember what the other one is, but what I do like, similar to how when I used to coach myself, is that it's always a variation. It's never the same variation of a specific exercise, whether it's squat, bench, or dead. And I think that reinforces the fact of you saying that there's other aspects of training that you need to focus on every lift to make you strongest at squat, bench, and dead for a comp day. Yeah. Definitely always varying the stimulus and keeping fresh variety wise and stuff like that. Because I think if you're always just doing squat, bench, deadlift, and that's it, and you're not varying off that, you're probably not going to be able to get away with it for as much as it's probably what we would like to do, it's probably not going to happen, right? No. And then plus throwing in all the accessories as well, because I can admit it. I don't really talk about it much, but I myself am sore sometimes. Some days I feel like somebody's been punching me in my legs or my body, but my body recovers. So you are human after all. You are without a doubt human. We have proof of this. Which is kind of let's talk bench for a second. So
there was a really good thing I saw from a friend of mine, Bryce. It was one of his videos he did basically. And Bryce's, bench was always kind of like lagging. He basically decided he was going to, treat it with respect and focus on it and not make excuses and bring it up and stuff like that. Like, and your bench is obviously incredibly strong, but like, how often are you benching? 3 times a week, you said now?
3 times a week.
Yeah.
It's always been 3 times a week. I just feel like it's always been one you definitely want to do 3 times a week. So I'm always working on some different aspect of it, whether it's working on lockout, whether it's working on, tension coming down, tempo, or working on, strength off the chest, push off the chest. There's always something to work on with bench. So for me, it's also for the long-limbed people who can understand. It definitely makes things a tad bit more challenging, but hey, it's always something else you can focus on, right? We love a good challenge, so it's something I'm consistently working on being better at, because I don't want anything to lag. Like, I may not be the best bencher in the world, and I'm okay with that, as long as I know that I'm still progressing, and every kilo matters. So the goal is to get to the next kilo. So that's literally what I'm pushing towards.
I love how often, like, in our conversations, in your posts on Instagram and in this podcast, how often you use the word work. Right? You're going to put in the work. You're always working on something. You're working towards something. You're putting in the work. Like, there's no like easy way around this sport. There's no easy way around. You got to put in the work. That's one thing I admire so much about you, is that you're always putting in the work, and that's what you do.
I think sometimes people would think maybe because of some of the things I've accomplished that, I would just feel like, oh, okay, I'm at the top of the mountain, and okay, so what does she do now? Does she ever lose, focus on what she's supposed to be working on? I want people to know, and I think the people who know me already know this, that even though I know that in those moments I've won these championships or broken those records, in my mind, once it's happened, I'm not thinking about it anymore. In my mind, I'm thinking I'm back down at the bottom of the mountain with everyone else, working to get to the next goal. And I think that's a mindset that definitely helps me, keeps me hungry, because you should never get complacent. Nothing is guaranteed, and you have to work to accomplish anything. And that's what I know, that when I get to a competition, and if I've gotten the results that I've wanted to achieve for that day, I know in my heart that I've earned it, because I know what I did, the things that people don't see on Instagram or when you're on the web stream, to get me to that point. And just realizing that people have to remember, you have to stay hungry. And for every day that you're not giving 100% or you're lacking, that know that it's just making it easier for your competition.
So your focus to be able to do this and stuff, was this like always there inside of you, or was this something that kind of like you developed over time? Like, back when you were in track, did you kind of like have similar goal setting and mindset views of like working hard, putting in the work? Were these things always there with you, or was it something that just kind of like developed more when you got lifting? Like, how did this come about?
Hell, ever since I could walk. If it was a sport and walking, I was competitive. It's always been in me just to push myself to give my best. And it wasn't just academics, it was athletics. Like, for me, I even remember saying to myself, like, being a student athlete mattered to me. It mattered to me for people to know that I dedicated just, as much attention to work, my academics as I did athletics. So athletics, it was only going to be the same way. It's about giving 100%, because I feel like, how can you truly gain the most from participating in something if you don't give the most to it, And so that's always been the mindset for me. It's just to give 100%, and, it will pay off. It's not going to be easy, and Lord knows some days it really isn't. But knowing that once you get to that platform and you accomplish the goals that you want, that it was worth it. The people who are in your inner circle know what you did to get there, and you hope one day that some other people can have the opportunity to get to speak with you and know, well, what did it take for you to get there? Because you want people to know that it's not easy, because all they see is, the end result. The people who don't know you don't know what you go through to get to that point.
There's definitely that whole iceberg of things, of in lifting and in life, of just, here's what people see, and here's probably what's going to take place for you to get where you are, and then some, right? Let's go a different path. Let's say you are let's say there's a woman who's listening to this podcast and she's thinking about competing, and maybe she's really nervous to compete, but kind of like wants to, but is afraid to. What advice would you offer to somebody who's thinking about competing, wants to try, but might be afraid to do it?
I would tell her you just got to jump in.
Just jump in.
I tell her that everyone's been new at some point. I would tell him or her, you just have to get the experience. So I would tell them that making sure that you have, the right support system with you, that great coach, a handler, or family members who are going to come with you to support you. Making sure that you're taking in the proper nutrition, or working with a nutritionist who was certified or registered to nutritionist who can assist you with getting that aspect, just making sure that they surround themselves within a positive environment full of knowledge, experience, and love that's going to help guide them as they continue moving along. Because regardless of, how strong you are, everyone needs that support system. Because yes, you may be the person who's physically, on that platform performing, but it's the people who also support you that help you, get you to that point. So I would tell them that, help. I've got messages before from people asking those things, and I talk to them. I'll give them a call, whatever it takes, just to let them know it's okay. We've all been there, and you just got to jump in. And I love telling them that I promise that you will get more out of this than you put in, because it really is the truth.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's I've said this in many podcasts in my own coaching and stuff. I love coaching women. I love helping women get strong. It's something that really makes me happy. Like, I could probably coach more men, but I prefer to coach women, because it's just when women get strong, women get strong. They work so hard, and they're so coachable, and just like, it's just, I just love empowering and helping women get strong. And that's why it's been a big thing on this podcast, because I always wanted to throw a little question out there to help women who are listening and like taking that step to probably compete or get under a barbell, because it's a life-changing thing. It's such an empowering thing in so many ways,
Yeah, it is.
It's a great feeling.
I mean, look, I'm smiling just thinking about it. But
I know, right? You were doing this, and like when we're talking, I'm trying to read your body language and read what's going on. And when you talk about coaching, and you talk about helping others, it changes you. You can see it. It just feels good.
It feels good to help people.
Yeah,
it just does. Yeah.
So training hard now, eye on the prize for Worlds, hoping that's going to go through.
Yep.
What else is going on in Kimberly Walford's life right now?
I miss traveling, just for the sake of traveling. Would love to go out to a restaurant. Just working and training. I'm thankful, like I said, to have the gym here, but just looking forward to things getting back to normal. I mean, if we would have been having this conversation pre-COVID, if you'd be asking me what's going on in Kimberly World, well, no, it'd be a different story. But now it's just enjoying the extra time, doing lots of home projects like everybody else, stuff that's been on the to-do list.
Crazy, right? Let's talk for a second. Let's talk nutrition. So let's talk about what are you doing like nutrition wise? Like what's like the average day of eating for you? Like what do you do in your nutrition?
Okay. And I tell people all the time, I'm never going to be a hypocrite. So ideally I should be probably taking in about 2,800 to 3,000 calories. I'm lucky if I could probably get in about 22 to 2,400, just keeping it honest with you. Once you get used to monitoring your nutrition, you literally will know your macros by heart. For me, it's pretty much all about, clean eating as much as possible. I rarely eat fried foods. I love meat. I love seafood, veggies. Something else I've started doing now is I love Daily Harvest. They give you those frozen smoothies with all the vegetables and stuff. I would think I'd never eat cauliflower in a smoothie. But hey, I'm getting in my veggies. So in my mindset, I'm thinking about what I need to do to put in my body to help give me energy, to repair my body, and to best prepare me to lift. So everything, for the most part, minus the sweets. I'm human. I love sweets. I do allow myself to have a sweet maybe once a day.
Gotcha.
So whatever I want.
Yeah, you gotta live too, right? The people who are usually don't allow themselves anything are usually probably pretty unhappy humans. So it's
God forbid I died, I'd be mad if I didn't have that last piece of cheesecake or cookie or something. So.
Let's talk recovery. So when you're training hard, you obviously need to pay attention to recovery. Is there anything different you do recovery wise, like full rest days, active recovery days? Like how do you approach your recovery?
You should probably say that about pre-masters versus masters.
Yeah.
So now that I've gotten older, but I was in my 20s, probably until early 30s. Yeah, I could bounce back like nobody's business. I can definitely tell you, I can now understand the transition, even though I'm 41. But for me, I can start to see why I need more recovery as I've gotten older. So I appreciate those days off more than you know. I do not train on those days. I'm making sure that, when I'm done with training, of taking the post-workout, shakes and any of the supplements I need, BCAAs and et cetera, to help me with any type of soreness I may feel. Like you said, I'm human, I'm admitting it. I do have soreness some days. And also even just mental prep. You don't want to be going like back to back some days. You just need that time to just really de-stress and just be able to focus on everything that's going on. I will tell you, like, regardless of age, guys, especially like millennials, 20-year-olds, you guys, it's important. The recovery matters, because you want to be able to have as much of your ligaments and bones and everything you have by the time you get into your 40s and 50s. And that's actually some of the best advice, like, older people have told me, and when I mean older, I mean like 70, 80-year-olds. I've always asked them, like, what's your best advice for young people? And they always tell me that they thought, eat right, and they said exercise. So who better to get the advice from? So I pass on the same thing to everyone else, the importance. You need that time off. You need to take in as much as the good food that you need to help you focus on pushing towards those goals that you want in powerlifting or any other aspect of life.
Definitely. I would think that most people who are probably in their 20s are not even thinking about when they're in their 40s, but when they're in their 40s, they're going to be thinking about, like, why did I do this back then? So if anybody out there is listening, if a 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old probably gives you advice, I would probably advise to listen.
Yeah, it takes a little longer to get up.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes time. The gear changes might be a little slower, but
yeah, just a little.
There, right?
Just need a little bit more warm up. That's all. A little bit more warm up. So
it's definitely, I'm crossed over the 45 now, going towards 50, and like I said, things are just taking a little slower to get moving. Just respect the bar a little bit more, a little bit more time on the warm ups and stuff like that. Any regrets that you've had in your training? Have you, like, if you could go back and, like, change a few things or maybe tinker things a little bit, what would you maybe have done differently?
I would have taken mobility more serious earlier on. It literally took me getting injured, and you know how we powerlifters define injury. Injury in the sense of I can't actually powerlift, so it must be something I need to focus on. It took that happen to me for me to realize, okay, you really need to focus on mobility and fixing things in your technique to ensure that this never happens again. Even though, like, and when I say again, basically what happened for me is that it wasn't mobility that caused the issue. But it brought me to respect mobility more, because I ended up seeing a PT as a result of it. So basically just, it was a few years ago, I pulled my QLs, quadratus labrum on the right side.
Yeah.
And what happened was, basically I had lifted a few weeks prior. You know how you are when you're on that pre-workout and you feel invincible when you're attempting. And I attempted to break a record again a few weeks later at another meet. And let me preface this by saying I would normally not compete in less than 6 weeks apart, but didn't have a choice because it was like a worlds versus a national, so I had to. And instead of me shutting it down, when my coach and my friend said, you should shut it down, because I had already accomplished what I needed, which was winning, I said, nah, I feel great. I'm going to do it anyway. And literally when I went in to pull, I didn't even break ground. I just felt this sharp pain shoot up. And I have to tell you that even though I was still able to compete during that time, it took me about 1.5 years to get back to normal. And during that 1.5 years is when I was introduced to my PT, and he taught me the importance of not only helping me rehab that injury, but how mobility plays a huge role in how it affects your technique, and also with regards to how it can affect your ability not only to train and compete, but just being able to move. And it made more sense to me why other things happened to me. So yeah, I could definitely say
Yeah,
that.
I think, I think anybody who's in this sport for any period of time, and when you're competing, you're probably going to deal with injuries. You're probably going to get them.
Yeah. So,
How you learn from them and how you handle them, that's going to make the biggest difference in being able to continue and being able to get better.
and that's something else that's also changed is I think as I've gotten older, realizing that where 20-year-old me would have probably pushed it a little bit more on that next rep, telling myself, okay, if I push myself on this rep, is it going to be a good rep? Is there a chance I may hurt myself? Do I really need to do this? It's no, I'm going to get more out of this by shutting it down. Like younger me would have just been like, yeah, let's get it. I got to get this set. But being older and wiser, you know that it's not going to be an efficient rep. So why put myself through it? It's better to just shut it down. So I find myself doing that more, listening to my body more.
And now your coach, Kaiser, hold on, can you see? What are you doing? I know, in a minute.
Hi!
Okay, we're going. My boy comes to the gym with me. Okay, is there anything that you would like to add for anybody listening? Anything you would like to say to everybody out there in the powerlifting world right now? Is there anything you would like to?
I would just like to say, I think if I'm thinking from a personal perspective, that if you love this sport and you want to compete, do it. Don't wait for someone to tell you have to be a certain level of strength to do so. Don't wait for someone to tell you that I don't think your goals are, reachable. I always say you have to first believe that you can do it, and then you have to come up with a plan to make it happen. I also say, surround yourself with a great support system. It's not just the family and the friends. It's having a knowledgeable coach. If you are interacting with a coach and you don't feel like it's a positive relationship, there's a reason why there isn't. And you need to try and troubleshoot that either by having a conversation or finding someone else. Sometimes relationships don't last, similar to romantic relationships. Yeah. Just knowing that, always having that hunger within you, always know why you are competing. And as long as you can always keep having that fire within you, it'll keep pushing you through to that next goal. And if anything else, I would say just love the sport. I mean, this is what competing is about. Just being able to push your mind and body what you thought what was possible, and thankfully we've been given the opportunity to do so. So if I see you guys around, say hello too.
Let's let. Go listen. I was like a big fan and stuff like that, and I was kind of like literally a bit afraid to go and kind of talk to you and stuff. I'm so glad I did. Like, so if anybody's listening, watching, whatever, and stuff like that, if you see Kimberly at one of these events, obviously when she's not busy and like probably getting ready to go lift or something.
Yeah, except for those.
Say hi. It's really life changing. If you push your comfort zone sometime and just have a conversation with somebody that you were afraid to talk to, it might change your life. And if you don't have that conversation, you never know where things are going to go.
And can I add one more thing about that?
Yeah,
if you ever meet someone that you really hold in high regard in the sport, or just in, regardless of whatever, position they hold, if you meet them and they're not the person you thought they were, then maybe they just didn't deserve your respect in the first place. People, when they meet you, there's no reason to not be nice and kind when you meet somebody. So if someone acts like a tool, they probably didn't deserve it. Deserve the praise you gave them.
And there's obviously in powerlifting, there's going to be some people like that. There's going to be some people that like through social media might be somebody you look up to and you meet them and they're not going to, whatever else. But like you said, it's, be nice, be approachable. You never know how you can impact somebody's life with that one conversation, like
we're all human.
Yeah, man. Well, now I don't know about you.
Hello.
We'll see about that, right? I really appreciate that you taking the time to talk to me and do this podcast and stuff like that. And I know it's going to help and educate and motivate a lot of people that are listening to it. So I just take a moment and say thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure and stuff. And hopefully down the road, maybe we can do one in person or something, like one of our trips.
Possibly, COVID's over.
Yeah, we'll probably do one in person and stuff. Maybe I'll tag along with you for a deadlift workout so you can teach me how to deadlift and a few tricks and stuff like that. Otherwise, I would like to say thank you for doing the podcast. For everybody listening, I will post Instagram, all the social media stuff, information down below. Please be sure to follow Kimberly. She is a world-class athlete, world-class professional, and a wonderful human being. So I want to say thank you again for this. I appreciate it. And stay in touch in the future. And good luck.
Right, stay safe.
Good luck this year. Hopefully Worlds goes ahead. Hopefully
I'm hoping.
Goes, and hopefully you go there and things work out well and you kick butt and take names and then see where it goes from there. Awesome. Cheers. Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Powerlifting Podcast, and I hope that you enjoyed the show. If you did, please be sure to like, share, comment, and all of those wonderful things. If you want to find more information on the Powerlifting Podcast, you can check us out online at thepowerliftingpodcast.com. You can also find us on Instagram, YouTube, and all of those other wonderful media sources. If you have any suggestions for us on who you would like to see on the show, you can send us a message, or you can also email us at powerliftingpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you for your support.